afternoon and welcome back to the channel. I'm Chris and I'm a gorilla in the wrist. Today's is the first video of what we're going to refer to as gorilla shorts. So not full long scale reviews, but just a short dive into various elements of the watch collecting hobby. Today we're looking at Casio watches. I guess this is a bit of a rites of passage for many watch collectors, and therefore this is only going to be a brief stint. There's a lot of love for all of these watches on YouTube, and therefore there's not a great need for me to go into lots and lots of details about the specifications of each of the individual watches. However, I am going to talk to the I am going to talk about these three specific watches that have a specific relevance to me. I'm sure people will disagree with what I'm going to say, but they're my views, and it's really my take on these watches. The Casio was formed shortly after the Second World War, originally to produce parts for industry in Japan following the war, but then became more involved in electronics, initially with electronic calculators, which is what gave them their household name, before they moved into watches in 1974 with the Casio Tron, the first significant mass-produced digital watch, which did set the markets on fire back then. Since then, Casio as a watch brand have moved into every arena of watches, from sports watches to dive watches to digital timepieces to high-end watches. So first up today is the Casio AE1200, also known as the Casio Royale, James Bond reference that relates to the watch that James Bond wore in Octopussy. I actually think that the James Bond reference is still particularly valid. The reason why I think it's valid is that this always seems to me like a futuristic watch. In my head, this is what watches would have looked like if we were thinking about it as children of the 1970s and 1980s. And even the look of the screen and the layout has elements of that. There is a real sense of Bond villain lair to it. The world map, it seems to be something that you would see in a Bond villain lair, along with the almost nautical home screen in the top left-hand corner. And the whole thing has that kind of futuristic look to it, despite the fact that it clearly was made after the periods that we're talking about. And we may not have ever got our hover cars or our jetpacks, but this watch still holds that sort of futuristic, visionary look to it in my head. It's square, it's the Apple Watch before the Apple Watch was designed. It's incredible value. You can pick these up for around $30, and the functionality is just spectacular. It has time, it has a stopwatch, it has time across 4 different time zones without leaving the home page. It has a decent light, it has a countdown timer, it has 5 alarms, it has everything you could want out of a watch for $30. That fits you and has a battery that will last you for a decade. It's difficult to understand what people don't like about these. They just kind of do it all, really. It's a fantastic watch. Next up is the Casio DBC32. Now, if you're looking for geek chic, this is it. This is your watch. Completely pointless in so many ways in a modern environment. The calculator's great. Look how useful it is for us gorillas. It really doesn't work. I struggle to push any 3 buttons at a time, let alone just one. So it doesn't really work. The reason I like it is partly because of the shape. So it does have a very unusual, somebody referred to it as like a banana shape. But the thing about this shape is that it actually fits to the bigger wrists quite nicely. The calculator is useless, but it has enough functionality to be able to do what you need to do, and a nice big screen as well. It has a countdown timer, it has a calculator, it has a database for keeping telephone numbers in, because we all really need one of those nowadays. But at the time, those database functions were useful. I've slipped this one onto a leather strap just so that I can wear it more comfortably. Just have a quick look. and it really has an unusual profile, I think. But I like it. The style of the watch is interesting, and this is classic geek chic. For me, you could argue the CA53 might be a better option, but unfortunately on a Gorilla, the CA53 really does just disappear. So this is the boyo for me. It's worn fairly regularly, um, unbreakable, and a lot of fun, and clearly lines into my profession, which I'm not going to give away. But a great watch. And then finally into that day's selection is the classic Square G-Shock Casio DW5600. First G-Shock was made in 1983. This one came out in 1986, 87-ish, and has been in strong demand ever since. It's a simple watch. Functionality isn't spectacular. So it is literally time, alarm, stopwatch, date. But it's effective at what it does. It's incredibly robust. And again, I won't bore people with the story of how these watches came into existence. Watch, and there's a reason why it has stayed looking pretty much the way it did from 1986 to now. You don't need to change a classic. Casio do lots of other watches, lots of different versions of the G-Shock. Back when I first started into the hobby, you could pick these up for $50. When I looked on Amazon yesterday, the cheapest price I could see this particular version on Amazon was about 82, 83. So again, the prices of these are going up. But I would argue that for a watch that's going to last you 10, 15, 20 years, $80 doesn't seem like a great deal of money to me. And it's the ultimate beater. Put this watch on, smack into the walls, which I do as a Gorilla fairly regularly. You can drop it, you can throw it at the wall, you can drop it in a bowl of water, you can go swimming with it. Again, I'm pretty sure on my first trip to Mars, this is the watch that I'll be wearing. Casio G-Shock, an absolute classic. So there we have it, a quick trot through some of my favourite Casio watches. I hope you've enjoyed it. Could I ask that if you enjoyed it, you like, comment and subscribe, and if you didn't like it, comment anyway. Let me know what you'd like to see differently or what you think I'm doing wrong. Other than that, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for the review of the Shark analog watch and also the review of the San Martin SN0029-G-C. Hopefully see you then. Thank you.